So as it's coming up to Easter, today we're going to be making hot cross buns. So hot cross buns, really traditional at Easter, very easy to make. You'll see from this recipe just how easy they are to make. As usual, a full list of ingredients will be given at the end of the video, so let's have a look at those ingredients now and anything else we're going to need for today. Okay, so the ingredients for today's recipe, I've got 450 grams of bread flour, 75 grams of raisins, 50 grams of caster sugar or fine sugar, 50 grams of butter, 275 millilitres of warm milk, half a teaspoon of cinnamon powder, a teaspoon of salt, 14 grams of Easy Bake dried yeast, so that's 2 7-gram sachets, the zest of half an orange, and 1 medium free range egg which has been beaten. I'm also going to be using a piping bag with a small nozzle. So to make our dough, the first thing we need to do is combine all of the dry ingredients. Now I'm using a food mixer with a dough hook, so this is the bowl off the food mixer. You can obviously mix this dough by hand. So into the flour goes the sugar. We mix that in. Our salt, yeast, and our cinnamon powder. Just make sure that's well mixed in. So the next thing I'm going to do is to combine the milk, the egg and the butter together. So whenever I'm doing a dough like this or a brioche dough, I am 100% convinced that doing this technique definitely gives better results than adding them in separately, because with the butter you'd have to get it to room temperature and then work it into the flour as a crumb. It's just a lot of work involved, whereas this method I definitely think I get better results. So all I've done is I've taken the butter, blasted it in the microwave on full power for 30 seconds, just so we melt it. The milk is warm, so it's just been warmed slightly, and the egg is as is. So add in our butter. And the egg. Just give that a mix. So we've got our dry ingredients in the bowl. I've got the dough hook attached. I'm going to be placing the machine on a middle speed setting and adding our milk mixture a little bit at a time until we get a very sticky dough. And then once we get a sticky dough, the next thing to do is, as the dough hook is turning, just as we get to that stage of that sticky dough, I'm then going to add the raisins and the orange zest. Okay, so I've just got it to that sticky dough stage. We've got a little bit of liquid left, maybe about 15-20 mils left. The next thing to do is I'm going to turn the machine back onto a middle speed setting and then add the raisins and orange zest, and then leave it on either a middle speed setting or just higher than a middle speed setting. So the dough just starts to lift a little bit off the bottom of the bowl, and we're going to continue kneading that dough then for about 10 minutes. Okay, so that's our dough kneaded. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dough out of the bowl and place it, shape it first, and then place it into a lightly buttered large bowl, cover with food wrap, and then leave in a warm place in the house to prove for about 2 hours until it doubles in size. Okay, so that's our dough. It's been kneaded. Any raisins that may have come out of the dough while it's been kneading in the food mixer in the bottom, you can just simply fold those in. So scatter them about and fold them in. It's quite easy. None have come out of this one, so I was lucky. So as I said, large bowl, just buttered this slightly, just greased it just to make sure that the dough doesn't stick. Shape the dough, place into the bottom. Now I'm going to cover this, as I said, with food wrap and wait until it doubles in size. Okay, so that's the dough doubled in size. Took about an hour and a half. Next thing to do is I'm going to take the dough from the bowl, weigh it, and then split it into 12 equal portions. Right, so I've split the dough into 12 equal parts, and I've also got a large baking tray, so an oven-proof baking tray, and lightly greased it with butter. We need quite a bit of space between each of the dough balls that we're going to make when it goes into the oven and when it's proofing for the second time. So if you haven't got a oven-proof tray as large as this, then just use two smaller ones. So I'll just show you what to do with one of the dough balls, and then obviously we'll do that with all of them. So we take one of the pieces of dough. All I'm going to do is just pull the sides out and then fold them back in, and do this about 6 or 7 times until we start to create some surface tension on this side of the dough. And then with no flour at all on the work surface, on the clean work surface, what we want to do is the heel of our hand wants to stay on the actual work surface. Use a claw grip and just apply a little bit of pressure onto the dough, and just move the dough around on the work surface, so we start to create some nice tension on this dough ball. If we have any flour present on the work surface, what will happen is the dough ball could potentially turn over as well. What it's actually doing is it's rotating around and pulling that dough in on the top, so creating that tension. If there's flour on the work surface, it'll turn every way, and we just won't get that adhesion to the work surface itself. So once we've got a nice dough ball, place that onto the tray, a little bit of space obviously around the edge, and then we're going to do that for all 12. Okay, so that's the dough balls done. Next thing to do is I'm going to cover them again with food wrap, just lightly cover them with food wrap into a warm part of the house again for a second proofing, but this time for about half an hour. Okay, so the dough has now gone through this second proofing, this half an hour proofing with the food wrap on top. So the next thing we need to do is to pipe the white cross on the hot cross buns, and the white cross is just basically plain flour or all-purpose flour and water. And what we want to create is just like a very slack, sticky dough. So I'm just adding some cold water, just a little bit at a time. Don't add too much, because then you'll have to add more plain flour. So in the bowl I've got 4 heaped tablespoons of plain flour, and that should be more than enough to pipe 12 hot cross buns. Okay, so that's the flour paste done. So this is the kind of consistency we're looking for. Try and get as many lumps out as you can. A technique I use is to use a spoon and just press down into the paste, almost as though you're mashing bananas for a dessert. So once we've got this kind of consistency, the next thing to do is to place it into the piping bag. So I've just folded the piping bag down, and I'm just going to spoon this in. Okay, so when we're piping the white cross onto the dough mixture, I want to make sure that we get at least 3/4 of the way down to start the piping, and then it will, the dough will actually fall slightly, because what we don't want is the cross just to be on the top, because it just wouldn't look right. So about 3/4 of the way down, pipe in a nice steady action. And a good tip is when you come to the end of the piping, because the dough is so clingy, the only way to really release the dough at the end is with a pair of scissors. Yeah, I'm going to do it this way. And snip that off, and we'll just carry on and do obviously all of the buns in the same way. Okay, so once you've piped all of the hot cross buns, set the oven to 200 degrees centigrade, and once it's up to temperature, these will bake in the center of the oven for about 20 minutes. Okay, so these are our hot cross buns now fully baked. The next thing to do is to add a sugar glaze to the top. So I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar in a bowl, and to that I'm just going to add about 4 tablespoons of hot water from the kettle. And just make sure that's fully dissolved. Okay, so once that sugar's fully dissolved and you can't see any sort of granular bits in the liquid, next thing to do is to glaze the top of the hot cross buns. And apologies for the noisy parrot in the background. We've opened the patio doors because it's a nice day, and I think he's just going a bit stir crazy because of the coronavirus lockdown. Okay, so once the hot cross buns are fully glazed, the next thing to do is I'm going to take them off this oven tray, place them onto a wire rack so they can cool down fully. Okay, so let me just show you one of these. That's it, sticky, very springy, really soft inside. Just open this up, look at that. And they taste absolutely delicious. Just look how soft that is. So I told you they were easy. Hot cross buns, absolutely delicious. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you've enjoyed this particular video, hit the like button. Thank you very much for watching, because your support is greatly appreciated.